The slaver ship moved through the dark space like a hungry beast looking for food. Its name was the Pale Dominion, and its crew had spent 20 years taking people from weak ships and selling them to the fighting pits. They were good at their job. They knew which ships to attack and which ones to leave alone. On this night, they found a small cargo ship drifting near the edge of known space. The ship was called the Morning Star, and it carried medicine and food supplies to a distant colony. It was not a military ship. It had no weapons. It was exactly what the slavers wanted. Captain Borum stood on the bridge of the Pale Dominion and watched the cargo ship on his screen. He was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 eyes that could see in complete darkness. His species, the Valkyrie, had built an empire on the suffering of others. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. The weak existed to serve the strong. "Scan the ship," Borum ordered. "Tell me what we have." His second officer ran the scanners and smiled. 12 crew members, Captain. All human. No weapons. No military training. Borum's 4 eyes narrowed with pleasure. Humans were valuable in the fighting pits. They were small and weak compared to most species, but they put on a good show when they died. The crowds loved watching them struggle. "Board them," Borum said. "Kill anyone who fights. Take the rest." The attack happened fast. The slavers cut through the cargo ship's hull and poured inside with weapons ready. The crew of the Morning Star never had a chance. Most of them surrendered immediately. They were simple workers, not soldiers. They did not know how to fight, but in the cargo hold, hidden behind a stack of medical supplies, a young woman named Yuna heard everything. She heard the screams. She heard the plasma weapons firing. She heard the heavy footsteps of the slavers as they moved through the ship. Yuna was 18 years old. She was small, even by human standards, with black hair tied back and dark eyes that watched everything. She had been traveling on the Morning Star as a passenger, working her way to a new colony where she hoped to find work. The captain of the ship, an old man named Dongyun, had been kind to her. He had given her food and a place to sleep. He had told her stories about his grandchildren and shown her pictures of his home on Earth. Now she heard his voice from somewhere above her. "Please," Dongyun was saying. "Please, take whatever you want. Just let my crew live. They are good people. They have families." A Valkyrie voice answered him. It was cold and amused. "Your crew will live, old man. They will fight in our arenas until they die. That is a better fate than you deserve." "No," Dongyun said. "No, please. I will do anything. Take me instead. Let them go." The Valkyrie laughed. "You are too old to fight. You have no value." Then Yuna heard a sound she would never forget. A plasma weapon fired once. A body fell to the floor. The Valkyrie laughed again. Something changed inside Yuna at that moment. Something broke, and something else took its place. She had known fear before. She had known anger. But this was different. This was cold and quiet and patient. This was the feeling of a predator that had decided to hunt Dot. She stayed hidden while the slavers searched the ship. She controlled her breathing. She made no sound. When they finally found her, she did not fight. She did not scream. She let them put the gravity chains on her wrists and dragged her to their ship with the other survivors. There were 9 other crew members still alive. They were crying and shaking with fear. Yuna walked among them in silence. She was counting the slavers. 14 on the boarding team. She noted their weapons. Plasma rifles, shock sticks, knives. She watched how they moved. The tall one with the scar favored his left leg. The fat one was slow when he turned. The young one was nervous and kept looking at his weapon. She stored all of this information in her mind like a computer saving files. She did not know when she would need it. But she knew she would need it. The slavers took them to a holding cell deep in the Pale Dominion. The room was cold and dark and smelled like old blood. Other prisoners were already there. Strange aliens of many species, all of them broken and afraid. One of the crew members, a young man named Taiho, grabbed Yuna's arm. "What do we do?" he whispered. His voice was shaking. "What is going to happen to us?" Yuna looked at him. She saw his fear. She understood it. But she could not share it anymore. The fear had burned away when Dong Yun died. "They are going to make us fight," she said quietly. "In arenas. For entertainment." Taiho's face went white. "We cannot fight. We are not soldiers. We will die." "Yes," Yuna said. "Most of us will die." She walked to the corner of the cell and sat down with her back against the wall. She closed her eyes, but she was not sleeping. She was thinking. She was planning. She was remembering everything she had ever learned about survival. Yuna had grown up on Earth, in a small village in the mountains. Her grandmother had taught her things. Old things. How to move without sound. How to find the weak spots in an enemy. How to turn fear into fuel. Her grandmother had said that humans were not the strongest creatures on Earth. They were not the fastest. But they had survived because they were smart and patient and willing to do whatever it took to live. "We are the children of a death world," her grandmother had told her once. "Everything on Earth wants to kill us. The animals, the weather, the diseases. We survived because we learned to kill them first." Yuna had thought these were just old stories. Now she understood they were lessons. 3 days passed in the holding cell. Yuna did not speak. She barely moved. The other prisoners thought she had gone crazy with fear. They left her alone. But Yuna was not crazy. She was waiting. On the 4th day, the slavers came for her. Captain Boehm himself stood at the cell door and pointed at her with one long gray finger. "That one," he said. "The small female. She will be first in the arena. The crowd will enjoy watching her die quickly." 2 guards grabbed Yuna and dragged her from the cell. She did not resist. She let them think she was weak and afraid. As they pulled her down the corridor, she looked back at the other prisoners one last time. Taiho was watching her with tears in his eyes. Yuna nodded once at him. It was a small gesture. A promise. Then the doors closed and she was gone. The arena of Valkyris Prime was the largest building Yuna had ever seen. It rose from the red desert like a mountain made by hands. Its walls were black stone and metal. Its seats held 10,000 screaming aliens who had come to watch creatures die for their entertainment. Yuna stood in a dark tunnel beneath the arena floor. 2 guards held her arms. Ahead of her, she could see bright lights and red sand. She could hear the crowd roaring like a hungry animal. "Listen to them," one guard said with a cruel laugh. "They are excited to see you die, little human." Yuna said nothing. She was breathing slowly and deeply. She was making her heart calm. She was pushing all thoughts from her mind except one: survive. The guards removed her chains and pushed her forward into the light. The arena floor was a circle of hard red sand. It was stained with old blood that had turned black in the sun. High walls surrounded it, too tall to climb. Above the walls, thousands of aliens sat in rows that rose toward the sky. They were pointing at her and laughing. Yuna walked to the center of the arena and stood still. She was barefoot. She wore only a thin gray shirt and pants that the slavers had given her. She had no weapons. She had nothing. A huge voice filled the arena. It came from speakers hidden in the walls. "Welcome, citizens of Valkyris Prime. Today, we bring you fresh meat for your entertainment. First, from the death world called Earth, we present a female juvenile human. Watch as she faces our 8 greatest gladiators. Place your bets on how many seconds she will survive. The crowd laughed and cheered. In a luxury box high above the arena, Captain Borum leaned forward in his seat and smiled. This would be amusing. The small human would scream and run and die, and then the real fights would begin. 8 gates opened around the edge of the arena. 8 creatures stepped onto the sand. Una studied each one in the seconds she had before they attacked. The first was an insectoid, a creature like a giant mantis with arms that ended in curved blades. The second was a reptile with thick scales and claws like knives. The third was something that looked like a bear made of rock. The fourth was thin and fast with 4 arms and eyes like a spider. She kept counting. 5 was a mass of muscle and teeth. 6 had tentacles lined with hooks. 7 was covered in spines that dripped with poison. 8 was the largest, a creature that walked on 4 legs and had a head like a hammer. 8 killers. Each one bred or trained for combat. Each one at least twice her size odd. The crowd began to count down. 10, 9, 8. Una did not move. She watched the insectoid. It was the closest. It was leaning forward on its legs, ready to charge. Its blade arms were raised. 3, 2, 1. A horn sounded. The fight began. The insectoid was fast. It covered the distance between them in less than 2 seconds, its blade arms cutting through the air toward Una's head. But Una was no longer there. She had been watching the insectoid's legs. She had seen the slight bend in its knees before it moved. She had known exactly when it would attack and exactly how it would attack. In the moment before the blades reached her, she dropped low and moved forward. The insectoid's own speed became its death. It could not stop. It could not turn. Una slid beneath its reaching arms and came up behind it. Her hands found the gap between the plates of its shell at the base of its neck. She grabbed and twisted with all her strength. The crack was loud enough to hear over the crowd's roar. The insectoid fell. It was dead before it touched the sand. Una took one of its blade arms. She had to use her foot to break it free from the body. When she stood up, she held a weapon as long as her arm, curved and sharp as glass. The crowd went silent. 4 seconds. The first gladiator had died in 4 seconds. The reptile attacked next. It was smarter than the insectoid. It did not charge blindly. It circled around her, looking for an opening. Its tail swept the sand behind it. Una let it circle. She turned with it, keeping the blade between them. She was reading its movements. Every creature had patterns. Every creature had weaknesses. The reptile lunged. Una stepped to the side and let it pass. Her blade cut across its back leg as it went by. The reptile screamed and fell. It tried to get up, but its leg would not hold its weight down, while Una did not give it time to recover. She was on it before it could turn. The blade found its throat. 2 dead. Less than 1 minute had passed. Now the remaining 6 were careful. They spread out around her, trying to surround her. They had seen what she could do. They knew she was dangerous, but they did not know how dangerous. Una had grown up on Earth. She had learned to hunt in the mountains with her grandmother. She had learned that humans were the greatest predators their planet had ever known. Not because they were big, not because they were fast, but because they could think. They could plan. They could adapt. The 4-armed creature was the next to try. It came from behind her while the rock bear came from the front. They thought they could catch her between them. Una ran toward the rock bear. The bear was surprised. It had expected her to run away, not toward it. It swung one massive arm at her. Una dropped to her knees and slid across the sand beneath its arm. The rock bear's punch continued forward and hit the 4-armed creature in the chest. While they were tangled together, Yuna drove her blade into the joint where the rock bear's leg met its body. Stone's skin was hard, but joints were always weak. The bear roared and fell. Yuna climbed onto its back and drove the blade down into its head. The four-armed creature was still trying to recover when Yuna reached it. It died with a look of complete surprise on its face. 4 dead. The crowd was no longer laughing. The remaining 4 gladiators attacked together. They had decided that their only chance was to overwhelm her with numbers. They came from all directions at once. Yuna took a wound here. The creature with the muscle and teeth caught her shoulder with its claws. Blood ran down her arm, but she kept moving. She used the bodies of the fallen as shields. She made the gladiators get in each other's way. One by one, they fell. The tentacle creature grabbed her leg and pulled her down. She cut its tentacles off and drove the blade into its eye. The spine-covered one tried to poison her with its touch. She grabbed one of its own spines and pushed it into the creature's mouth. Finally, only the 4-legged one with the hammerhead remained. It was the largest. It was the strongest. It charged at her with the force of a vehicle. Yuna did not try to fight it directly. She ran toward the wall of the arena. At the last moment, she jumped and pushed off the wall, flying over the creature's head. As she passed above it, she drove her blade down into the base of its skull. The creature crashed into the wall and did not get up. Silence filled the arena. Complete, total silence. Yuna stood in the center of the sand, surrounded by 8 bodies. Blood covered her hands and arms. Her shoulder was bleeding. Her breath came in short, hard gasps, but she was alive. She looked up at the luxury box where Captain Borm sat. She could see his 4 eyes wide with something he had never felt before. Fear. The clock on the arena wall showed that 12 minutes had passed since the fight began. 12 minutes. 8 gladiators. 1 small human girl. Yuna raised her blade and pointed it at the captain. She did not speak. She did not need to. Her message was clear. You are next. Captain Borm stood in his luxury box and stared at the arena below. His 4 eyes could not believe what they were seeing. 8 of his best gladiators lay dead in the sand, and the small human girl stood among them like death itself. Around him, his advisors were talking fast. Their voices were high with panic. This is impossible, one said. She is just a juvenile. She should have died in seconds. The gladiators must have been drugged, another said. Someone sabotaged them. There is no other explanation. Silence. Borm shouted. His hands were shaking. He had never felt fear before. He did not like the feeling. Send in the guards. All of them. End this now. His security chief, a scarred veteran named Hyuk, nodded slowly. But there was doubt in his eyes. Captain, perhaps we should use the gas. Put her to sleep from a distance. It would be safer. No. Borm slammed his fist against the window of his box. The crowd is watching. If we use gas, they will think we are afraid. Send the guards. 40 trained soldiers against 1 wounded girl. It will be over in seconds. Hyuk did not argue. He pressed a button on his communicator and gave the order. Down in the arena, Yuna watched the main gate open. She saw the guards marching out in formation. They wore black armor and carried plasma rifles. Their movements were disciplined and professional. These were not mindless gladiators. These were soldiers. She counted them as they spread out around her. 40, all armed, all trained. Her shoulder was still bleeding. Her body was tired from the fighting. The blade in her hand was chipped and dull from use. The smart thing to do would be to surrender, to accept death. No creature could fight 40 armed soldiers alone, but Yuna was not thinking about surrender. She was thinking about Captain Dong-Yun, about his kind smile, about the pictures of his grandchildren, about the sound his body made when it hit the floor. She was thinking about her promise. The lead guard stepped forward. He was older than the others, with gray at the edges of his scales. He carried his rifle with the easy comfort of someone who had used it many times. "Human," he called out. His voice was flat and professional. "Put down your weapon. Kneel on the ground with your hands behind your head. If you cooperate, your death will be quick." Yuna looked at him. Then she looked at the 40 soldiers behind him. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of something that had stopped pretending. "You know what a Deathworld is," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. It carried across the silent arena. "Your people have studied Earth. You know what we are." The lead guard did not answer, but she saw his grip tighten on his rifle. "Earth is a planet where everything wants to kill you," Yuna continued. "The animals are predators. The plants are poison. The weather destroys cities. The diseases kill millions. Even the water and the sun can end your life if you are not careful." She took a step forward. The guards took a step back. "Your species evolved on peaceful worlds. Worlds with gentle weather and weak animals. You never had to fight to survive. You never learned what it means to be prey." She raised her blade. The blood on it was still wet. "Humans are different. We grew up surrounded by death. We learned to be the thing that death was afraid of." The lead guard raised his rifle. "You are one wounded girl. We are 40 armed soldiers. The numbers are against you." "Numbers do not matter," Yuna said. "What matters? I am willing to die here." "Are your soldiers?" She looked at the guards behind him. They were trained soldiers, yes, but they were also thinking beings with families and futures. They had seen what she did to 8 gladiators. They were imagining what she might do to them. "I am going to walk out of this arena," Yuna said. "I am going to find your captain. And I am going to keep a promise I made to a good man who died because of him." She pointed her blade at the luxury box high above. "Anyone who tries to stop me will die. Anyone who steps aside will live. Choose now." The arena was completely silent. 10,000 aliens held their breath. The lead guard looked at Yuna. He looked at the bodies behind her. He looked at his soldiers. He was a veteran of 30 years. He had fought in wars and killed enemies beyond counting. He knew how to measure the will of an opponent. This human girl was not bluffing. She was not afraid. She would fight all 40 of them, and she would kill many before she fell. Maybe most. Maybe all. Was his loyalty to Captain Borum worth his life? He thought about his family, his children, the home he had built over many years. He lowered his rifle and stepped aside. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the other guards began to lower their weapons. They moved back, opening a path from the center of the arena to the main gate. Yuna walked forward. Her steps were slow and steady. She passed between the guards without looking at them. Her eyes were fixed on the luxury box above. In that box, Captain Borum watched with growing terror. "What are you doing?" He screamed into his communicator. "Stop her! Shoot her!" But his guards did not move. They had made their choice. Yuna reached the main gate and stopped. She looked up at the crowd. 10,000 aliens stared back at her with a mixture of fear and wonder. "Tell your children what you saw today," she said. A voice echoed in the silence. "Tell them that humans are not prey. Tell them that we do not break. Tell them that if you hurt us, we will find you. No matter how far you run, no matter how long it takes." Then she walked through the gate and into the tunnels below the arena. Up in his box, Captain Borum was already running. He pushed past his advisors and fled through the back door. His hearts were pounding with fear. He had to get to his ship. He had to escape. Behind him, In the arena control room, a young slave named G1 sat at her console. She was Valkyrie herself, but she had been born into slavery. She had spent her whole life serving cruel masters. She had watched countless prisoners die in the arena below Dot, but today she had seen something different. She had seen a small human girl refuse to break. She had seen that girl defeat 8 gladiators and make 40 guards step aside. She had seen something that looked like Hope. G1 made a decision. Her fingers moved across her console. She locked the doors to Captain Borum's private quarters. She opened the paths that led to them. She jammed the communications so he could not call for help. Then she sat back and watched. Her screens. The human girl was moving through the tunnels. She was following the signs toward the luxury levels. She was going hunting. G1 smiled. For the first time in her life, she was not afraid. The hunter had become the hunted. And G1 had chosen her side. The luxury levels of the arena were a different world from the blood and sand below. Here, the floors were polished stone that reflected the light like mirrors. The walls were decorated with gold and precious metals. The air smelled of expensive perfumes instead of death. The wealthy aliens who lived in these halls had never known violence. They had watched it from safe distances, placed bets on suffering, and laughed at the deaths of slaves. They believed themselves untouchable. They were wrong. Yuna moved through the corridors like a shadow. Her bare feet made no sound on the polished floors. The blade in her hand was dull and chipped, but it was still sharp enough to kill. Her shoulder had stopped bleeding, but her arm was stiff and painful. She did not care. Pain was just information. It told her she was still alive. She met her first obstacle at the entrance to the inner luxury section. 2 guards stood at a golden door. They wore ceremonial armor and carried decorative weapons. They had never fought a real battle in their lives. When they saw her, they froze. They had heard what happened in the arena. They had heard that the guards refused to fight. They saw the blood on her hands and the death in her eyes. "We do not want trouble," one of them said. His voice was shaking. "We are just door guards. We have never hurt anyone." Yuna looked at them. She could see they were telling the truth. They were not killers. They were not slavers. They were just workers doing a job. "Open the door," she said. "Walk away. Do not come back until tomorrow." They opened the door so fast they nearly broke it. Then they ran down the corridor and did not look back. Yuna continued forward. The inner halls were full of panic. Rich aliens were running in every direction, screaming for help that was not coming. Their servants were hiding. Their guards were disappearing. For the first time in their comfortable lives, they were experiencing fear. Yuna ignored them. She was following signs on the walls. Emergency exits. Private quarters. Captain Sweet Dot. She found 3 more guards along the way. One tried to fight her. He died with a surprised look on his face. The other 2 dropped their weapons and ran. Finally, she reached a heavy metal door marked with Captain Borum's personal symbol. The door was thick and strong, designed to stop attackers with weapons far more powerful than a broken gladiator blade. Yuna studied it for a moment. She could not cut through it. She could not break it down. She needed another way. A voice came from a speaker in the wall. It was female and nervous. "Human, can you hear me?" Yuna looked up at a camera above the door. "I hear you. My name is G1. I work in the control room. I have been watching you." The voice paused. "I can open the door for you. Why would you help me?" "Because I am a slave too. Because I have watched people like you die for years, and I am tired of it. Because what you did in the arena was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen." Yuna was silent for a long moment. She had learned not to trust anyone in this place. But she had no other choice. "Open it," she said. There was a click. The heavy door slid open. Inside was a room of incredible luxury. The walls were covered with trophies from 100 conquests. Weapons, flags, skulls. Captain Borum had built a monument to his cruelty. And there, in the center of the room, stood Captain Borum himself. He was holding a plasma pistol. It was beautiful and deadly, made of black metal and glowing with blue energy. A weapon like that could burn through starship armor. Against an unarmed human, it would be instant death. "Stop right there," Borum said. His voice was trying to sound strong, but there was fear underneath. His 4 eyes were wide and wild. "One more step and I will turn you to ash." Una stopped. She looked at the pistol. She looked at Borum. She calculated distances and angles and reaction times. "You killed Captain Dong-Yun," she said. "He was a good man. He begged you to spare his crew. You shot him anyway." "He was weak," Borum snarled. "The weak deserve to die. That is the law of the universe." "No," Una said. "That is your law. Humans have different laws. We protect the weak. We remember the dead. We punish those who hurt the innocent." Borum laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You are one small girl with a broken blade. I have a weapon that could destroy a building. You cannot win." "Maybe," Una said. "Maybe you will kill me. But I have already won. Your gladiators are dead. Your guards abandoned you. Your empire of cruelty is breaking apart. Even if you kill me, you will spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Because now you know the truth." "What truth?" Una smiled. "That humans are not prey, and there are billions of us." Borum's hands were shaking now. The pistol wavered in his grip. He was not a warrior. He was a businessman. He was used to giving orders, not fighting his own battles. "I will make you an offer," he said. His voice was desperate. "I have money, ships, power. I can give you anything you want. Freedom, wealth. I can make you a queen." "I want Captain Dong-Yun back," Una said. "Can you give me that?" Borum did not answer. Una took a step forward. Borum fired. The plasma bolt screamed through the air where Una had been standing. But she was no longer there. In the moment before he pulled the trigger, she had seen his finger tighten. She had seen his eyes focus. She had moved. The second shot missed her by inches. The third went over her head as she dropped low. Then she was inside his reach. The fight lasted 8 seconds. Borum was not trained for combat. He was soft and slow. His pistol was powerful, but it was useless at close range. He tried to back away, tried to bring the weapon up, tried to scream for help. Una's blade found the gaps in his defenses. His arm, his leg, his chest. She did not kill him quickly. She could have. But she wanted him to understand. "This is for Captain Dong-Yun," she said as she stood over his broken body. "The man you killed for sport. He deserved better than you." They all did. Borum looked up at her with dying eyes. "What are you?" he whispered. "I am human," Una said. "From Earth, a death world. We are the monsters that other monsters have nightmares about." She kept her promise. When it was done, she stood alone in the room of trophies. Her body was tired beyond words. The wounds on her shoulder and side were burning. Her hands were covered in blood, but she felt something she had not felt since Captain Dong-Yun died. She felt peace. The speaker in the wall crackled. "Human," Jiwan's voice said. "Una, are you there?" "I am here," Una answered. "There are 400 slaves in the holding cells below the arena. Prisoners like you. They heard what you did. They are asking for you." Una looked down at Borum's body. Then she looked at the door that led back to the corridors. "Can you open the cells?" she asked. "Yes. Can you get us to a ship?" "The captain's personal vessel is in the private hangar. It is fueled and ready. I can guide you there. Yuna nodded slowly. She had made a promise to Captain Dongyun. That promise was kept. But now she thought about the other prisoners. The ones still locked in chains. The ones waiting to die in the arena. She had another promise to keep. Open the cells, she said. Tell the prisoners to follow the lights. Tell them that the human girl is going to take them home. There was a smile in Ji-won's voice when she answered. Yes, Yuna, I will tell them. The ship was called the Silver Fang. It was Captain Borum's personal vessel, a fast cruiser built for luxury and speed. Now it carried 412 freed slaves through the dark space between stars. Yuna sat in the pilot's chair. She did not know how to fly a ship this large, but Ji-won sat beside her, and Ji-won knew everything. The young Valkyrie woman had left her control room for the first time in years. She had chosen to follow the human girl who had taught her that even slaves could be free. Behind them, in the cargo holds and passenger rooms, the former prisoners were slowly coming back to life. They were eating real food. They were treating their wounds. They were calling out names, looking for friends and family members. Many of them had been in the arena for years. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. Now they stood at windows and watched the stars pass by, and some of them cried. Yuna did not cry. She was too tired for tears. The wounds on her body had been bandaged by a medical alien named Su-Yoon, who had been a doctor before the slavers took him. He told her she needed to rest. She told him she would rest when they reached safe space, 3 days after leaving Valkyrie's Prime. The Silver Fang entered the territory of the human colony world called New Bizon. Yuna activated the emergency beacon and waited within an hour. 3 colonial patrol ships surrounded them. Their weapons were pointed at the Silver Fang. Their communications demanded to know who they were and why they were flying a gnome slaver vessel. Yuna answered them. Her voice was calm and steady. Though she was so tired, she could barely keep her eyes open. This is Yuna of Earth. I'm aboard the vessel formerly known as the Silver Fang. I have 412 freed slaves on board. We need medical attention, food, and help contacting the families of the dead. There was a long silence. Then a new voice came through the communication system. It was rough and suspicious. This is Captain Eunji of the Colonial Security Force. How did you come to be flying a slaver ship? I took it from him, Yuna said simply. Another silence. Longer this time. You took it. From a slaver captain. In the middle of his own territory. Yes. How? Yuna thought about that question. She thought about Captain Dongyun and his kind smile. She thought about the arena and the 8 gladiators. She thought about the guards who stepped aside. She thought about Captain Borum and his dying eyes. I made them understand, she said, that humans are not prey. The colonial ships escorted the Silver Fang to the main station above, New Bizon. Medical teams came aboard and began treating the wounded. Officials came to take statements and record names. Reporters tried to push through the security lines, shouting questions about the arena incident that was already spreading across the galactic news networks. Yuna ignored all of them. She found a quiet corner of the station and sat down with her back against the wall. She closed her eyes and finally let herself rest. She woke to find Captain Eunji standing over her. The security captain was a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. She held 2 cups of hot tea in her hands. May I sit? Eunji asked. Yuna nodded. Eunji sat down beside her and handed her one of the cups. For a long moment, they drank in silence. I have read the reports from the survivors, Eunji said finally. I have watched the recordings from the arena. I still do not believe what I saw. Yuna said nothing. She sipped her tea. It was warm and good. You killed 8 gladiators in 12 minutes. You made 40 armed guards step aside. You hunted a slaver captain through his own fortress and killed him. Then you freed 400 slaves and flew them across half a sector to safety. Yunji shook her head slowly. What are you? Yuna had been asked that question before. By the guards. By Captain Borm. She gave the same answer she always gave. I am human. From Earth. We are from a death world. Yunji looked at her for a long time. Then she nodded slowly. The Galactic Council is in emergency session right now. They are discussing what to do about humans. Some of them want to restrict your travel. Others want to ban you from their territories entirely. They are afraid, Yuna said. It was not a question. Yes, they are very afraid. Yunji finished her tea. What do you plan to do now? Yuna looked out a nearby window at the stars. So many stars. So many worlds. So many people still in chains, still fighting in arenas, still waiting for someone to help them. I want to enlist, she said, in whatever force hunts slavers and protects the innocent. There are more people like Captain Dong Yun out there. Good people who need someone to fight for them. Yunji studied her face. She saw the exhaustion there, the grief. But underneath all of that, she saw something else. She saw iron will and endless determination. She saw someone who would never stop fighting. You know it will be dangerous, Yunji said. The slavers will put a price on your head. They will send hunters after you. They will never stop trying to kill you. Yuna smiled slightly. It was the first time she had smiled since Captain Dong Hyun died. Good, she said. Let them come. Let them learn what I learned on Earth, what my grandmother taught me when I was a child. What was that? Yuna stood up. She looked out at the stars with eyes that held no fear. That the best way to survive is to make your enemies afraid to find you. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Slavers Syndicate issued a new directive to every vessel in their network. It was distributed to every auction house, every fighting pit, every ship that flew under their banner. The directive was simple. Humans are not to be captured, traded, or harmed under any circumstances. Any vessel encountering human ships is to withdraw immediately. Any personnel who violate this order will face execution. This is not negotiable. This is absolute. In the margins of the directive, someone had written a note in small text. There is a human female hunting our ships. She is small. She is young. She has already destroyed 3 of our operations. If you see her, do not fight. Run. And pray she does not follow. The name at the bottom of the directive was blacked out, but everyone knew who it meant. On a small patrol ship at the edge of known space, Yuna read a copy of the directive and laughed quietly. Beside her, Jiwon was learning to pilot. Behind them, a crew of freed slaves was training for the next mission. They had work to do. There were still slavers out there. Still arenas. Still innocent people waiting for someone to save them. Yuna did not know if she would live to see the end of the Slaver Syndicate. But she knew one thing for certain. They would never stop fighting, because that was what humans did. They survived. They fought. They protected each other, and they never, ever forgave. The stars stretched out before them, full of darkness and danger. But somewhere in that darkness, a single small ship flew forward, and the slavers of the galaxy learned to fear it.